Welcome to the 11th edition of UpStart in Bangalore. I'm Mansa, I'm your host for the evening. So, PayU is one of the leading payment service providers in India. We are across sectors like e-commerce, SMB, airlines, and of course the startup community. So, UpStart is a series that is a part of our startup outreach program. We have another series in the same sector, that is CodeUp. But UpStart is a series for startup entrepreneurs, while CodeUp is one for developers. So where domain experts of their own in their domain come and share their knowledge with the crowd. So today's session is an UpStart, and the topic is future of Fintech. So this is a particular topic that does not get covered very often, and we thought that we should do this, and hence we have two great speakers today with us. One is our first speaker for the evening is Karan. So Karan Kapadia, he's the founder and CEO at Fintech. So and our second speaker for the evening is Abhishek. So he's a part of PayU. He's the VP of products at PayU. So they will be covering different aspects of the future of Fintech along payments as well as the investment forum. So you can talk to them. You can understand their thoughts as well, and you are free to ask questions once your session is done. So over to Karan. He will be the first speaker for the evening. You can ask him questions once his session is done, and he'll also be available during the networking session where you again can ask him any questions, because he's a founder as well and he'll be able to cover that topic as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let me stand on this side so you can have a clear view of the slides which have been put up. But it's great to see you guys here. I think yesterday was a fantastic thunderstorm, and fintechs are ready to take on a firestorm in India. And you know the future is looking more and more bright as the day progresses. And I'll kind of highlight a few areas that we feel in our overall startup that we actually did, which will, I hope, go down and help you guys in understanding all about fintechs and the way forward that fintechs really have in this country. So, just a little bit about myself. I've been in corporate life for the last 23 years before I came out and started my own fintech startup last October. We've got proof of concept now out. We've got 2 rounds of angel funding which have already come in. And you know, the entire journey has been tremendous and terrific. I've also been fairly fortunate to have worked with well-known names, fantastic brands in their own respect over the last 23 years, and that has really gained a significant amount of impetus when I put together this entire concept of a new startup. So let's look at fintechs more from a scale and size and what the opportunity really is from an Indian context. I think the first thing which is all around you, I'm sure you would agree that India's got a shitload of problems, right? There's a lot of problems across, whether it's in the field of education, whether in the field of transportation, whether in the field of finance, business, trade, etc. But the objective really is that with this whole lot of problems, you can manage to see that there's significant amount of gaps which are there in this country. Gaps are getting filled in not by large corporations. They're coming in a slow way at their own pace, but gaps are really getting filled in by people like you and me out on the street. When we see a problem, you say that, hey, can I fix it? Can I solve that problem? And that's really how startups really emanate. They were built on the basis of the fact that people went in and said that I could do this and fix it, right? And to that extent, fintechs is one small part of the ecosystem of startups in this country, which is taking the last mile connectivity forward to really build out their strategy. But there's a long way to go. If you look at a global perspective, you know, you've had about 12 billion, $13 billion of funding in fintech specific startups across the world. and just 3% of that money has really come in into India fintechs. So that's a very, very small percentage of funding which has come into fintechs to that extent. In the backyard of India, if you look at Asia, there's a significant amount. That's second to the US. That's about 42%. And that really speaks volumes of the fact that the Asian countries, which is largely developing nations with the largest population on the planet, really has a fair amount of gaps, and that's where funding flow is coming in to help people to try to fix some of those problems. What are the areas really from an Indian context that we see in the fintech ecosystem? There's a variety of different streams in fintech from an Indian context, which is really developing fast. And these streams really are taking center stage. That's where a lot of the funding is coming in. That's where a lot of the talent pool is coming in from large corporations, both locally as well as from the global perspective. But it's still extremely nascent, underpenetrated from an Indian context. What's really attracting funding is, from an Indian context, is the return on investment. And when I look at return on investment, and I look at from a point of view that in relation to what's there out in the globe, fintechs only start at a very, very lean cost structure in this country. Most of the time when you actually start up your fintech, like how we did, you would probably for the first year or two, or maybe less, slightly less, bootstrap the company. So you'd really not be taking anything out of the company from that angle. You'll probably work out of home, or you'll have a very low cost property or infrastructure to get your proposition out into the market. So the return on investment is fairly attractive for many investors and angels who come in and say, yes, if you've got a good idea and it fixes a solution, it fixes the gaps, right? It's a matter of time that that idea will really snowball into something which is dramatically large. But at the end of the day, you do need enablers. You do need external factors and forces to come in and say that, look, I can't do this on my own. I need enablers to come in. I need great talented people. I need good government machinery and policies. I need local support, local legislature support or local council support to come in, or the mohalla to actually support me in what I'm trying to do. So enablers become a very, very crucial aspect in developing this entire growth of fintechs in the country. You've had a fair amount in the last 3 years coming in. Good noises coming in from the government in relation to setting up a solid fintech ecosystem in the country. And a lot of the rhetoric has been followed up with action. Rightfully or wrongfully so, there's a lot of debate about demonetization, but let's face it, right? Demonetization really pushed the fintech system into the mainstream part of the economy. If you look at, PayU, for example, Paytm, the guy down the road, the chaiwala, or even large, shop merchants who refuse to take credit cards or payment wallets, right, as a mechanism of transferring money, are today forced to do that. I go back to the story, where a very large sweet vendor in Bombay called Parsi Dairy Farms. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they're very famous in Bombay, and they do the finest milk-based products. And 1 kg of ghee costs 1,000 rupees, which is almost 2.5 times than what you would find out into the local market. But if you really had to go and buy ghee from Parsi Dairy, you would have to carry a lot of cash in your pocket and transact and purchase by paying cash. Today you walk into Parsi Dairy and he's got POS terminals to accept credit cards. He's got the Paytm app there. All this was done post November 2008 demonetization, right? So that's been a great driver in terms of fintechs. The payment mechanism supporting all this was UPI, the United Payment Integration Software System developed by the NPCI, the National Payment Gateway, sponsored by the government of India. And that really developed the whole concept of making payments seamlessly and through the digital network. So that's how you do your payments when you actually transfer money using your mobile phone or for that matter your bank platform. UPI has become a fantastic architecture for fintechs. I can tell you from my own experience in starting up the mutual fund advisory side online is that I use the backend architecture which is linked into UPI for people to transfer money and buy mutual funds on my site. So that's been a wonderful architecture which has actually come into place. Taxation is another area. And just go back not too far ago, 2-3 years before GST came up. If you start a company, there are 4 or 5 different tax layering that you need to work through. You need to get your head around that. And really file those returns as per the deadline. You had service tax, you had excise, you had income tax, several tax structures were there not long ago. GST has changed all that. You just have one tax structure that takes care of everything. All you need to do is get your head around GST and the process of filing in your returns on GST. The added benefit is that, hey, if I'm charged GST by a vendor and I'm charging my client GST, I can do what they call a set-off of the GST. So really, my net outflow on the balance sheet is zero. So GST has been a fantastic enabler for startups at large and fintechs because we operate in that ecosystem. Let's look at something which is really on the ground. JAM was an area which was mooted by this government when they came into power in 2014. People thought that they were joking. Who's going to open 500 million bank accounts? Who's going to really transfer money using your mobile phone and the Aadhaar integration for both the bank accounts and your mobile phones, which will become your unique identifier or what we call the KYC of an individual. But that is today reality. You've got 500 million bank accounts today, right? You've got a billion plus Aadhaar holders today. You've got a billion plus mobile holders today. And how do you really integrate all these 3 mechanisms which will benefit the last mile connectivity for individuals in this country? That's where the fintechs have a huge commanding role to play in doing this. Mobile apps, very easy for fintechs to develop and bring onto the table, link it to the UIDAI system for Aadhaar, and you're able to transact using your mobile phone. So it's not all rhetoric. There's a lot of enablers which this government has really put in, and this has really propelled this whole concept of fintechs into the overall economic ecosystem in this country. So I talked about technology. Now technology being a significant enabler. You can't do all these things without having a strong technological backbone, and that's where you've got fantastic talent which is there in this country, which actually is in a position to build this technology and integrate this entire mechanism, which will solve problems of people, right? Which will address concerns of financial inclusion that people have got, which will address concerns of receiving money without having that to be pilfered into the system, and before you actually get to the last rupee coming into your account. So, like I said, you got about 1.2 billion mobile phone users in this country, and you got internet penetration going up significantly with 450 million, and that's kind of ramping up. Speeds are improving, your data plans are improving. You can actually get a data plan cheaper than your masala dosa or your idli sambar, right? Today, and that's really which is creating a significant amount of push for fintechs to really develop their scale using some of these technologies. But the multiplier, and I'll spend just half a minute on this, is Aadhaar. Now, there's a lot of issues around Aadhaar. There's a lot of debate around Aadhaar, but one thing that you can't take away about it is that it's a unique identifier which links all Indians. Consider Aadhaar to be the Facebook of India, right? In the financial system. Your bank account, your mutual fund, your insurance, your mobile phone, anything to do with money or transacting or any kind of payment mechanism that you will be developing will have to have Aadhaar seeded into that. And that's the whole concept of why Aadhaar will become a key driver. To just give you an example, if I were to do your KYC in an environment where you never had Aadhaar, I would have to physically collect a copy of your PAN card, physically collect a KYC application form with your signature, and some other supporting verification for your address. Submit it into the regulator that regulates the KYC processing in this country. It would take anywhere between 7 and 10 days. Come on to my website, use your Aadhaar if you've never invested in mutual fund, and in 3 minutes get yourself KYC compliant. That's the power of Aadhaar today, which is there. Now, I'll just spend quickly, just about a minute and a half in terms of where I come from. I've come from a very structured setup. Corporate life is all about, looking up to processes and adhering to policies. It's great. It gives you fantastic grounding. It gives you a great insight into how large institutions are able to scale up and large institutions are able to deploy resources. And that's where really I come from in terms of my corporate profile. And it's really about, hitting the ground running. It drives you to, build scale. It drives you to build those revenues. It drives you to crack into those big deals, in whatever you may do. It drives you to save several thousands of dollars in cost saving for the firm. So it drives productivity in a significantly strong manner. But, corporate life will also have different hierarchies. So the mantra of success will always be defined based on the hierarchy that you are in. So if you are really at the senior management or at the top, on the board, you will have what we would call the 4 P's to success. And a senior manager would probably have his own definition of the four P's to success in corporate life, which he will then downstream in a town hall or through emails, etc. And those 4 P's will look like this. But if you were, a departmental head, if you were working at a middle level head of a department or head of a profit and loss center, right? Your 4 P's of success will be focused really on what the departmental success and productivity would look like. And they would look like this, right? But if you were still lower down the chain, say a territory manager, a territory sales manager, or a head of a processing unit, right? Or head of a technological backbone enterprise project that you're driving, then your 4 P's would really look like this. So corporate life gave you a good sense of where you want to kind of fit yourself in, and at every stage to develop into seeing where you could actually gain higher ground in terms of success. When I started my career in corporate life, I'm not a technology guy, I'm a finance guy, right? I got finance and numbers written all over me and in terms of my qualifications and education. But the first adventure with technology was way back in '97, where I was the lead business manager for HSBC in setting up their internet banking and call center platform. And the narrative of technology in those days was very different. It was all about .com, ATMs, virtual branch, telebanking. That was cutting edge technology way back in '97, right up to 2005. But then the narrative has changed significantly. Since 2006, the narrative on technology, which is cutting edge, is all about blockchain, is all about artificial intelligence, digital, and so on and so forth. So really, there's been a transition shift in how technology was viewed not long ago, and I'm talking about not about 15 years back, to how technology is viewed today. And that transitional shift can only be filled by fintechs who are able to really capitalize and take quick decisions and really experiment, build things, look at R&D from that perspective. So when we started our fintech firm, we decided that, look, we need to have a purpose in life, right? What are we doing to start this firm? My co-partner and myself, we brainstormed for almost a quarter to really find out what the right purpose is. And the reason being is that the mutual fund industry is extremely complicated, right? It's got several facets which require to be extremely compliant and regulatory centric from that angle. And all we wanted to do is really to make it simple. Crunch this entire thing into simplicity. Make the complex simple. That was the very purpose that we really started off. So we had our mission statement built out, very simple to understand. Somebody who would probably read it will get to know what we really do. We took this vision statement, gave it out to some friends, family, and said, "Do you understand what we want to do in life?" And they say, "Yeah, kind of. It's good. We tweaked it, so on and so forth." So it's important to start off with a mission statement. And if you get your mission statement even 50% right, 50% of your job is done. We then moved on to the next one, which is people. So the 4 P's to us is the first purpose, the second is people. And in corporate life, you would probably hire a person for a specific role. So I would hire a BTech engineer to do a sales job out in the field, right? Generally, I would not do that. I mean, there are BTech engineers who are doing a fantastic job in selling banking services and products out in the field. But generally, I would take the person's education, look at it, look at the job that I have, and then fit that person into that specialized role. And that's where corporate institutions have developed over the past several years into fitting people into specialized roles. My job was finance, right? So a lot of what I did in banking was related to do with finance. I never went into technology, right? But they brought me into technology for the simple reason of my finance background and my customer orientation, which helped the technology guys to build the platform. Fintechs are all about that. You get in people, high caliber people, good qualifications, people who are in a position to be specialists and also to have a generalistic approach in a fintech. So in a fintech, certainly you need people that can multitask, that can do a variety of different things at the same point of time to develop that solution. The third P is really passion. Passion is something which is subjective, right? And you don't really get to understand passion until you really start feeling it. Again, in corporate life, passion is an important fabric of any individual. They encourage you to be a team player. They encourage you to really take ownership. They encourage you to be extrovert and reach out to stakeholders, not just your limited circle of your team. All that is important for a fintech, but so is several other areas in this aspect where fintechs look at passion being a significant driver in developing it. You need to be passionate about what you do. You need to believe in what you're doing, and you need to transcend and take forward that passion forward in building your solution on the platform, on the ground. The last one is all about persistence. And if you looked at the slide where I showed you about at different levels, if you were at a corporate life, if you were a senior manager to a department head, persistence came across in all the three, right? And persistence is what you really aim to do. Corporate life tells you that, hey, you need to be a good problem articulator. You need to articulate the problem so that people can start working to it. I mean, you can't be vague about, hey, this is a problem in this company, right? You need to be specific, right? But the problem with that is that you don't be the solution driver to that. You articulate the problem, and you hand it over to somebody else who will then build out a solution, right? It's all about, corporate life is all about rear view driving. You know, you look at historical processes and say it didn't work then, it will not work now. So it gave you some amount of ability to see in history, which is very important from gaining a perspective for the future. And it also made you a little bit of riskless, right? So depending where you are, it is not my job, it's above my pay grade to do this job, right? And that's where, the change comes in when you look at fintechs. You need people who are disruptors, you need people who can question the status quo, and you need people who are problem articulators, problem solvers, and can really design that solution and put it onto the table and say, hey, I've got a solution, like, let's test it out in the market. So what will really make fintechs competitive in the future? And this is an important aspect that I thought that is important to, as part of my concluding part of my presentation. So we moved from brick to mortar way back in the 80s and 90s. If you were to really go and access a branch or a bank, you had to physically walk into a bank, or you had to physically walk into a mutual fund house and submit that application in. You move to, finger punching technology, where, ATMs came into existence, internet came into existence, and now you're moving into behavioral science. You're trying to understand the mind of the person, right? And developing that solution, looking at that individual's need, and putting it out for him. So that's what I call behavioral science. But all this is all great if fintechs miss the opportunity in India, and the opportunity really is really at the bottom of the pyramid. That's where the base lies. If fintechs, and when we went out into the market, we said that, look, let me develop a solution which will address the base, which will address the lower class in terms of their income stream, and then on top of that start building a pyramid to start addressing all segments of society. I've seen startups in India which have not done too well, and fintechs as well, which have not done too well, and are going back to the drawing board, because they started their plan in looking at what the guy at the mid segment or the higher segment in terms of an income stream would look for, and then start building top to bottom. It doesn't work that way in this country, unfortunately. It may work elsewhere, but in India, you need to start at base. You will have a fair amount of hurdles that will come your way, roadblocks that will come your way. GST implementation that I spoke about, great for fintechs, great for startups, dealing with one single tax regime, but the implementation process was extremely painful. Virtually, I could tell you that, many startups and some fintechs whom I know very well, GST put a halt to their process unless they got the entire framework and understanding around this new tax regime in place. And that was a painful exercise. So getting tax notices coming in from the department for angel tax. And again, it put a halt to what you did. We were all scuttling around and finding out, is this possible? Because, when you actually get funding in, and then for the tax authority to come and say, hey, you got 1 crore of rupees, you need to pay me 30% as tax. That's a hell of a lot of money for a fintech to lose, right? So you will have roadblocks, and you will have hurdles to go through in this entire journey that fintechs and also consequently startups are going through. And there will be certain good announcements. Sometimes it will be in your favor, sometimes it may not be in your favor. But the important part is to continue to navigate through all these hurdles and problems that may persist as your journey into this new area and new scheme actually evolves. So cut out the clutter. It's important. You will find a hell of a lot of negative news coming in. You'll find the fear syndrome of the press playing upon your mind, and focus on what is important for fintechs. I look at the power of the 4Ps in my firm, and I tell every individual working in Fundo Fintech to look at the 4Ps. You look at your purpose, people, passion, persistence, and translate that microscopically in what you're doing. Pay attention to detail. Put in sufficient amount of time to fix that problem, right? Don't rush that through. Perfect your craft. Once you have a solution, how can I take that forward and how can I build better on that particular solution? Is there a better process that I can implement? And finally, project your passion. And that's a very important aspect because that shows your level of conviction, your level of commitment, and your strong desire to succeed. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Do we have any questions?
So my question was, let's say your startup is specifically focused towards mutual funds, right? So it takes a certain amount of effort to educate the market and etc. So what specifically is your startup doing to educate the market? Are you doing something different, or are you relying on others to educate the market?
Good question. So education is a very, very important aspect in whatever you may do. For fintechs is extremely crucial to educate the masses. So a lot of what we do is all about partnerships in our fintech. We may not have the content, we may not have the expertise to build that content, or it be very expensive to build out that content. So we've linked into the Association of Mutual Funds campaign called Mutual Fund Sahi Hai. And we've got 8 videos which are there of not more than a minute and a half for people to understand what is mutual funds all about and how they go about investing. So those 8-minute videos are there online. But one of the areas which, and I said that you should have an ecosystem, external ecosystem supporting you. One of the areas which Amphi supports us in a big way is to really do corporate education programs. And we've got within our team 2 people who have got experience in the past. They've come from the mutual fund industry and they were doing that in their previous roles. And they're building out these corporate presentations, delivering them, executing them, and talking to potential investors about mutual funds on a one-to-one level basis. So that's the level of outreach that we've actually created. And that would not be possible without a strong ecosystem in place from the external angle. So that's what we really do on the education side. As we move forward, our partners that we have, the mutual fund manufacturers that we have come forward and supported us to say that they will build content for us. So they've got tons of content in their archives, right? And in relation to what we do, not all the content is relevant to what we do, but in relation to what we do, they will push out some of that content. If we like it, then they will co-brand it, remodel it, rework it from their end for us to use out into the market for our target segment. So one of the areas, to give you an example, is that a lot of the content is in English language, right? Your application form filling is in English language. Your mutual fund scheme details in the English language. So we are working with one of our partners to translate some of the content in terms of mutual fund concepts in regional languages, right? So they've got fantastic content which is in English language, but like I said, when we go out and do our outreach program and we are talking about the base, right? The base is not sitting in Bangalore. The base is sitting in interior parts of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, etc., right? And that's where we require regional content to support us in getting the message across.
So there's a question online. What are your thoughts about RBI regulations in Fintech? Because they say that PayPal was introduced in the US in 2000, but not allowed in India because of RBI regulations.
Okay, so I think my view on RBI regulations is very clear. You need a very, very strong regulator in this country. The problem where economies really fail is when the regulator is not strong enough and independent enough to take their own decisions. Now, specific to the relation of fintech, I don't think there's anything detrimental that RBI has done for specifically targeting startups or fintechs. All they've said is that you need to have a regulatory mechanism and framework. If you're in the lending business, you need to register yourself under an NBFC license and get that license. If you're a mutual fund distributor, you need to register yourself under AMFI, which is regulated by SEBI. And besides that, you can even gain significant amount of credibility if you actually go to the Department of Industries and Policy Promotion today and get a license. And we've kind of got ourselves certified by them. Not all fintech startups actually get certified through them. But RBI is a watchdog, and at the end of the day, if the end customer loses comfort, loses trust in, and therefore because of that loss of trust, they've lost money. Remember, they will always be suspicious about anything to do with money, right? Or with any business that is launching any aspect of money. RBI has been a fantastic enabler by promoting the entire NEFT RTGS system. They've connected all the banks in the country and they've told banks that penalize customers if you issue checks. Penalize customers if there's significant amount of cash withdrawals. But if there is online payments going through, you should actually reward those customers, right? And banks are doing that. So if you actually, transfer money using the RTGS system, or you receive money using the RTGS system, banks are extremely happy and reward that loyalty to their customers in some way or the other. So RBI has been a fantastic enabler in getting banks to link up, upgrade, innovate the system so that money can be transferred. Today, I've got a very close friend which has a startup in the solar alternate energy ecosystem in interior parts of Maharashtra, right? And there is only one bank, which is a state bank of Maharashtra, which has a small branch there. Earlier, when I would have to send him money for something, right, I would have to make out a draft and send it to him, right, by post. Today, I can transfer that money, right? And that's been a huge enabler given by RBI. So it certainly is a watchdog. We need a watchdog. We need a regulator. You cannot have an open mechanism in any country where the regulator is weak. But at the same point of time, the regulator should be an enabler. And in my view, I think RBI has been more an enabler than an inhibitor to fintechs.
Hi. Yeah. So my name is Shubham, and I have two questions. So you spoke about all the infrastructure that government has come up, be it UPI, GST has come up with their own ways. I want to understand from you first how easy it is to get the access to that infrastructure on those APIs. Second, how stable are these APIs to build applications?
Okay, so in our case, we built an API which is a regulated back-end system for processing millions of mutual fund transactions. They do approximately 3 lakh transactions a day. I'm not talking about in terms of value, I'm talking in terms of volume. And that is the BSE stock exchange. So we've linked into an API with them. We are extremely happy with what they are doing. We've not faced any downtimes. But an important aspect is that when you link into an API, many a times, and this is a learning coming from our end, many a times your technology guy is talking to their technology guy, right? And getting that link into their API. But it's important to impress upon that partner where you're linking your API what your business is really all about. So for example, when our technology guy was talking to the BSE tech guy and said that, look, we want to link into an API and do these transactions, right? And if I were really putting up an algorithm of a portfolio of schemes to the investor, okay, and the investor went through and said, this, I like it and I want to buy these schemes. And they were probably say 4 or 5 schemes came up in the algorithm basis as requirement. In that case, what BSE was thinking that we will do individually, the investor will have to do 5 individual payments from his bank account, right? That's what the BSE tech guy was assuming. We went in as the business and we said, no, this doesn't work this way. This is our business model. This is what we really want to drive. This platform is all about algorithms. It's all about, filling the need of the customer, and therefore that need could be 1 scheme or it could be 5 schemes, right? Depending on what he puts in. But I want just 1 payment to hit his bank account. I don't want multiple payments to hit his bank account, right? And that articulation is very important because that's where the other side gets to know what your business is from that angle. So to us, linking into the BSE side was not a problem. Very helpful, very responsive, and we did that. There are other partners that we could link into, but we did our due diligence and said we want to go down this route. Sorry, your second question was pertaining to
Basically, BSE is more private data in that term.
how do you get access to that?
How do you get access and how stable are those APIs? In case of BSE,
Yeah.
directly help, it makes sense, but we're dealing with GST and we face it very frequently. The whole of the APIs.
Correct.
So I just wanted to know what experience you have.
So we've had a very good experience, touch wood, with regard to BSE. Gaining access to some of these large players, which is on the back end, is all about gaining that extent of credibility. So you've got to get your process right in terms of getting your approvals. I would not be in a position to access the BSE site unless I didn't get my AMFI registration license, right? I needed to get that first. I would not get my BSE accessibility unless I pass the fit and proper test by SEBI, right? And that's only when they would give me access to their site, even without an API, even as a user onto their site. So you need to get your process straight. You need to see what are the various regulations I need to get certified from, or regulators need to certify me and recognize me as a bona fide entity in this country, and then take that certification forward and say, I need to link it to your API, right? So that's really. Incidentally, we also link into the UIDI system, right? Because we have an Aadhaar-based KYC, right? That links straight into the UIDI system. So the DIPP certification and recognition played a very crucial role in getting us access to the UIDI system. We don't get database of Aadhaar members, but when it pings their server with the right Aadhaar number, we get a response back saying that the guy is KYC compliant or there's a problem. Good. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Karan. As already mentioned, he would be around for the networking session. He's also a founder. You can ask him such questions about that as well. Over to Abhishek right now. Before he comes on, can we collect the puzzle sheets from the rest of the people here? Whoever has not submitted it then.
Am I audible? Hi, good evening everybody. I think this is the best spot. My name is Abhishek. I head product for PayU. Thank you Manasa and team for putting this together. Thank you, Karan, for your insightful talk. It was very interesting. Um, so, yeah, so we've been in the payment space for a while now. My product journey started with PayPal, and then I moved to Citrus, which got acquired by PayU. So, we've been in the fintech space in India for a while. So, as Karan was mentioning, worked on all the newer technologies, be it UPI, worked with banks to increase success rates and all that. So, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. So, the topic for today's discussion is around what are the opportunities for startups and players in this ecosystem to partner with, somebody like PayU, right? We feel there's a lot of value add that could come in with to the ecosystem by partnering with multiple players. I'll deep dive into some of these opportunities in due course of time, but prior to that, some bit of an understanding as to what we do and who the players are in this ecosystem. Keep it open. Yeah, so we have PayU, right? I mean, PayU pretty much processes transactions for merchants. We have close to about 4 lakh merchants on our platform. We build payment solutions for everybody. It be a startup who has a website, we build a payment solution for them. It might be somebody who's just looking to collect online payment, by sending links or or something like that. We support that. We have wallet, we have UPI solutions, and all of that, right? And all of that. Talking about ecosystem players, who are they? I mean, in a very simplistic view, on one side is the merchant and the other side is the consumer, right? Where does PayU really come in? PayU facilitates a transaction and takes a cut out of every transaction. That's a simple business model that we work on. There's another fourth player in this ecosystem who's very, very important for us. So nothing but a partner. Partner, what he does is he builds. So a merchant today doesn't really have to build his own e-commerce portal. He goes to a Shopify or a WooCommerce or any of the large platforms and pretty much use their capabilities to build a shopping platform, right? So that's how he does it. Apart from one of the global players, we have a lot of small developers in India who facilitate and building e-commerce portal for a lot of merchants. And then PayU comes in and these partners basically refers all these merchants to PayU and get an incentive out of PayU. So that's the business model which a partner works. They refer merchants to PayU, and then we incentivize more and more partners to bring it for them for the referrals they bring in, right? So that is pretty much how a partner works. So we have on the one side merchant, a consumer, and a partner. Of course, on the back end, we work with a lot of banks so that we streamline integration and facilitate payment for a larger ecosystem. Now, moving on to some of the needs of this place, right? It is very, very important to understand the needs of this ecosystem before we deep dive into the opportunities that get created. And so, what is really a merchant need? As Karan was really pointing out, right? Onboarding has a lot of frictions. Today, as a payment platform, if I need to onboard, I need to make sure that the KYC is as seamless as possible for a merchant. It is important because tomorrow RBI will come and catch me if some of the documentation is not complete. If the merchant is doing any kind of fraudulent transaction, if it's not really compliant to do transactions in India, I will be insured. So it is the onus is on to platforms like us to make sure that the KYC process is as seamless and as authentic as possible. But from a merchant need, his need is very simple. Boss, I need to collect my payment. Right? I mean, that is a simple need. And as quick time as possible. So how do we facilitate the entire process? That is what that is our bread and butter business. We work on it on a day-on-day basis, and we try to make it as seamless as possible. The second aspect is, once you integrate, I mean, it should be the payment API should be as very simple to integrate, right? I mean, there are multiple players in the market, and to be competitive, we need to make sure that our APIs are very simple to integrate. Thirdly, he needs a very simple dashboard. If he needs to have a view as to what are the kind of transactions that are coming in. He needs to be able to file refunds. He needs to be able to download records and all that jazz from a single point of view, right? A single dashboard should be able to service all his needs. And the fourth need, of course, where is my money? I mean, if you're making a transaction, the settlement needs to come into his bank account. It needs to be committed. PayU has a commitment of T plus 2 days. and that commitment needs to be met. So that's very important for a merchant because his cash flows are pretty much dependent on that. And last but not the least, a good customer support. As consumers, we are aware that calling up anybody and resolving queries is a painful business in India. Not just in India, in everywhere in the world, it is a painful business. So as technologists, how do we make this process as seamless as possible so that the friction for a merchant is as less as possible, so that his query gets resolved quickly is a critical aspect, because otherwise the merchant has multiple choices, right? He can move on to some other platform. Moving on to a consumer, and it's me and you, right? I mean, we are pretty much spoiled for choices, aren't we? Today, if we need to make a transaction, we make a transaction looking at how much cashback really comes to me, right? We don't really go with how much is whether it's a debit card or a credit card. We get cashback, right? That's what is more important. So, as a consumer, as a payment company, I need to make sure that we offer to the consumer as many payment options as possible, so that the choice is left to him as to how does he really want to make a payment. So, be it UPI, be it wallet, be it debit, credit, or whatever means, we support all of that. But the world is moving very fast, right? I mean, the option to pay later is a critical game changer that we are going to witness over the next few years. Be it EMI options or be it loan at a click of a button, as Karan was mentioning, even mutual funds at a click of a button, right? That's the world which we are moving to. So we are seeing lot many credit players coming into India, PayU as well. So we recently launched a product with Credit Tech. I don't know how many of you know, it's a very simple credit product which will help you convert your transaction into EMIs and stuff. So that's pretty much the world for consumers. It's pretty much spoiled for choice. And third player in this ecosystem is a partner. What does he really need? He needs a very good incentive system. We need to make sure as PayU that any of the referrals that are coming in, we need to give him a competitive incentive so that he sticks to us and brings in more and more merchants, because that's our bread and butter business, right? He also needs a real-time tracking of all the merchants that he's bringing into our platform. He needs, let's say he's bringing in about 500 merchants, he needs to understand where they are stuck in the onboarding journey, and if possible, he should have the authority to submit documents on behalf of the merchant, or whatever is possible, right? So that end of the day, all the 10,000 merchants are onboarded onto PayU, which means he will get an incentive. It's very important for him from that perspective. Now, since we have set a context, let's move on to the opportunities. The first pain point, right? I mean, before we talk about the opportunities, is tooling of a payment gateway. Today's world, for a merchant, a small merchant who is starting up, there's no real difference between a Paytm or a PayU or an InstaMojo or any of the other platforms, like or Razorpay. For him, everybody is the same. So how does he really make a choice? It is very difficult, isn't it? I mean, he is aware of only his business. Let's say he's selling fireworks and wants to collect payments. He doesn't really understand how does he go about doing that, right? And therein lies an opportunity for tech-savvy startups to recommend the right kind of product solutions that are available, so that the merchant fulfills the needs, and in turn, it is very good for these players like you to basically earn some money as well, right? I mean, it's a very simple business. The second opportunity is about helping merchants integrate. This is, my experience over the last 3-4 years in payments in India. Integrating a payment gateway is one of the most complex aspects for merchants. Though we are trying as technologists to make it as simple as possible, but it never does work. Because there are some tech-savvy merchants, somebody who doesn't really understand payments at all, or technology at all. How do we really cater to them? That's where there's an opportunity for a lot of technologists like you and me to really disrupt this market. If you think about this, there's a simple, handling PG downtime is one of the pain points, right? If you think about it, JustPay as a company, their entire business model is based on, just orchestrating between payment gateways. They just are a layer above a PayU and a BillDesk, and they move pretty much traffic between these players, right? And that's a beautiful business model that they have. Similarly, if we are able to create simple software kits, so that a merchant doesn't really have to bother about what are the client-side changes that I need to make, what are the server-side changes that I need to make, and it is as simple as plug and play. the particular startup takes care of all its needs so that the merchant's pain point is as less as possible. That's a beautiful world that we need to move to. And even error handling, right? I mean, today's world, even after going live, we see that for a lot of merchants the bounce rate is pretty high. Why? Because he wouldn't have handled all the error scenarios at his hand. It is important that he does that, right? I mean, otherwise, his consumers are not going to complete their payment and they're pretty much going to go to some other platform. If you think about a small startup, it is very important that they do that right way when they begin, right? Because a small startup pretty much starting their game and going online, from a consumer's point of view, if my first transaction doesn't go well, I'll never come back to this portal at all, right? I'll go to some other merchant. As compared to maybe a Flipkart or an Amazon, which, I mean, I know I will have to come back to the same platform to buy my stuff. So that's the second opportunity. The third biggest pain point is what I would like to spend some time upon. We are a payment player, right? I mean, we provide payment options for a small-time entrepreneur to go live. But as we spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs, we realize that payment solution is just one of the things. He needs to create value. We need to go beyond. I will illustrate with an example, right? Sorry. Think of Raghu. Raghu is a cupcake startup, right? I mean, he likes to make cupcakes, and he has a small niche customers who live around his house, whom he caters to. They love his cupcakes because it's very different from what they sell in the market. Now, the customers of Raghu are very, very happy with him, but that's not enough for Raghu, right? He needs to really scale his game. Otherwise, he cannot really break even and make profit. End of the day, that really matters, right? Why is that important? Because in India, 7 on 10 startups close within the first year of inception, and that's the reality. Even in PayU, we cater to about 3.5 lakh merchants. There are about 100 odd merchants who onboard every day onto our platform. But most of these merchants, will they be still transacting at end of 1 year? No, that doesn't really happen. So it's very important that as a platform, we do whatever we can to make sure that they grow. And how can we do that? So think of Raghu's example as well, right? I mean, Raghu is very good at his own product line. He is very good at making cupcakes to his own clientele. So imagine there's a startup who's partnering with PayU, and they offer a service, a marketing service, wherein suddenly Raghu has access to 200 more customers, right? At a click of a button. Will Raghu not be interested in going for this service? Of course, right? I mean, Raghu doesn't really have the time and energy to research out who are the marketing agencies in the market and which one should I go for. And if a platform can give him such a capability, why not? He will love to go for that. Similarly, think of a delivery platform who can come to Raghu's doorstep and collect these cupcakes and now service it to a larger clientele, right? That's a beautiful integrated platform that Raghu would love to be part of. Now, just extrapolate this whole example and moving on to the entire value-added services that the world which we want to go in, right? Be it a GST or a tax or an accounting as a service, right? And all these services come together at a click of a button through an integrated platform. Raghu would simply love, and that's creation of value, right? I mean, we are going beyond payments and addressing the core need of a merchant, which is how do you really scale up? And we are there for every step of your journey, and we'll help you grow. And that's the world and the vision for PayU. And as a product guy, I would like to really partner with all these startups to make sure that we convert their dreams and make it a reality. And that is where we would like to partner with new startups like you to be part of this growth journey of SMBs in India. And believe me, the number of startups that are coming up every day in this whole SMB space is phenomenal. It is very different as compared to the global world, and it is an opportunity for all of us to really make a difference, right? And that's pretty much my presentation. Any questions? Would love to take them. Thank you.
So
transaction? It really depends on the merchant, right? I mean, for PayU, the success rates are around close to about 75 to 80%, but that's an overall at an Uber level. For a startup who's starting out, the success rate at the initial rate, depending on the kind of business you are in, it could be very low. It could be around 40 to 50%. And as and when you acquire more customers and they're more confident about coming onto your platform, the success rate increases as well. So the intent to buy on your platform is the critical aspect. How many fail for a given merchant or for PayU in general? So that's what, right? I mean, if you take 100 transactions, about 80 would go through. So the reason why a payment fails is there are multitude of reasons, right? I mean, it could be because there's a failure at the bank's end, or let's say the customer after coming on to PayU has cancelled his transaction, or maybe there's not enough money in his account, or the transaction could have been blocked because of fraudulent reasons, right? So there's multiple reasons.
So basically, see, as a consumer, so I know that money is there in my account, it's still a transaction phase. So, PayU is saying that the bank is not responding, or the server takes some service is not working. So all affects the PayU's reputation.
Correct.
In turn, damages your customer service.
Correct.
So how do you handle this?
Yeah, perfect. So what we do really is, right, I mean, PayU doesn't really work with one bank. PayU has multiple banks behind the scenes, right? I mean, if there's down, so for example, if we to just give you some glimpse, SBI PG is one of the worst banks that we have worked with. I mean, the kind of downtime we've seen with them is pretty horrendous, right? So what we do is, but the rates are quite cheap. I mean, as a business, we need to factor that in as well, right? So what we do is, if somebody goes down, we orchestrate our layer so that we push transactions to somebody else. For example, think of big billion day, right? I mean, big billion day, the number of transactions going through a platform is humongous. For one platform to take that, I mean, it takes a lot of technology behind, right? By the way, so a lot of Flipkart traffic goes through PayU as well. So what we do is we talk directly to banks. We make sure that the middlemen, we skip certain layers instead of going through certain acquirers, or we directly talk to the bank through direct connections, so that the processing time and the number of hops the transactions to make is as less as possible. That's how we do it. It's a work in progress. It is never going to be 100% because of the nature of the industry that we live in. So it's probably the best is the work in progress.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of lazy pay. So you solve most of the problems he's talking about. So what do you think is the next product or feature you personally like? Let's say maybe lazy pay or e-mandate, or what is the?
Personally, I think lazy pay. I mean, I've seen lazy pay when it was in the inception stage, and now I've moved on to manage a different set of products. Lazy pay is a beautiful product, right? I mean, I don't know how many of you are aware. Lazy pay solves the problem. I mean, within one click, you don't really have to go to a net banking or any of this process. With one click, your transaction is complete, right? And we make sure that we give you time to accrue all your payments and make sure you can pay all your payments in one go at the end of 15 days or 20 days, right? So that's how it works. So the next feature which I would want is around recurring payments. So currently, if you think about it, I am a guy who doesn't really want to keep paying my electricity bill and all these services, right? So with UPI 2.0, the world is going to be opening up for recurring payments and standing instructions. I would hope that it reduces the friction, and I would just have to give one-time authorization and all my payments are taken care of, right? That's the world which I would like to move forward to. On lazy pay roadmap, I can't disclose, but there's a big plan that's in place for the next product launch as well. Sorry? All basic. Okay. So some of these larger platforms, right, be it a Shopify, so think of this. You're on Facebook. You're a seller on Facebook, and you interact only with Facebook. Now, when you're doing this, let's say you're connected with PayU for processing your payment. Now, as a merchant, I need to authorize Facebook to call APIs on the merchant's behalf. Right? For example, if you are making a transfer for every transaction that is coming in, in today's world, if it's a merchant and a consumer world, once a consumer makes a transaction, there's a pay call, that API that goes to hits PayU, right? Now, this pay call, instead of the merchant, the platform has to make that call. Or the refund, the platform has to make that refund, right? So that's where the authorization or the revoking mechanism has that entire capability needs to be exposed to a partner's end, so that he can make that call and the merchant doesn't have to bother about it at all.
Tickets, like users are very much into it. I get the ticket book within time. So what do you see a future? Like, how should it go about? Like, I should not finally waste like 10 minutes and get a time after that.
Yeah.
So what do you think it will be in
I think lazy pay will solve that problem, right? I mean, it's all about so instead of waiting for if I understand your problem correctly, if let's say you are on a red bus platform, you are trying to book a ticket and it goes on. Before you come and enter your debit card and do the OTP, your transaction times out, right? Is that the problem?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the world again is moving toward more and more one-click checkout, right? I mean, lazy pay launch. I mean, it's on Swiggy. You could try it with one single click. We make sure that we let you make the transaction and we collect the payments at a later point of time. So you don't have to go through all that. Go to the bank page, authorize your payment, and then come back. So that would is the entire process.
There's also a considerable amount of risk there.
Yes, so the risk is taken by us, right? I mean, that's where we make sure that we understand who you are as a person and what kind of credit appetite you have, and what credit appetite we have. We have models in place to make sure that we do all the vetting to give you credit. How many of you are running your own startup here and would like to start up? Of course, many would do. Great.
Any more questions we have for Abhishek?
Yeah, real-time, not in time. Yeah. So what really happens today, right? I mean, I think I spoke it in the context of partners, and if I'm not wrong. So when a partner refers merchants, right, to a platform, generally there's a lag in terms of how many merchants are really onboarded, where they are in the onboarding journey. As a partner, I would want to make sure that I get real-time tracking. I need to understand where they are in the onboarding journey, and if they're stuck, what can I do as a partner to help them quickly onboard, right? Let's say somebody somebody has to submit eight different KYC documents, and he has only 4, right? Now, as a partner, what can I do? I mean, can I help him collect this document and submit it to PayU? I mean, if I have that capability, then if I have the first app, I need to have the visibility, right? I need to see how many merchants are stuck. If I'm referring 100 merchants and only 20 have gone through, it's a loss for me, right? I would want all the 100 to go through so that I can make money out of them. I mean, at least whatever per transaction fee that I get or the referral fee that I get, right? So it's important that I get a visibility as to how many merchants have been able to successfully onboard onto my platform, and I can work with PayU to understand why, if somebody has been rejected, why they have been rejected. If I get such kind of transparency onto my dashboard, I can then call up the merchant because I have a better connection with them and I can submit documents. Yeah, the entire workflow. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhishek. So before we close, we have our puzzle winners. Rishi? Yes, hi. So Jitendra, Sulabh, Arun K, yes. Harshvardhan. So these were our puzzle winners. A round of applause for them, please. So as we close, we would like to thank each one of you for coming today. A very special thank you to Karan as well as Abhishek. Thank you for taking time off on a Saturday and sharing the knowledge with our crowd. So if any of y'all are looking for a payment gateway, the 5 of us are here today. You can reach out to any of us. And we open this session to networking. Karan is in the back and Abhishek is here. You can ask your questions, you can share your thoughts. And so the session to networking, we have food and soft drinks on the outside. So please help yourselves and thank you so much. Thank you once again.